A man sits beside a quiet lake. The water barely moves. Trees rustle above him like an old lullaby. He has no phone, no deadlines, no urgency to be anywhere else. The sun sinks slowly, unhurried, unbothered. He just sits and breathes. Most people would say nothing is happening, but everything is. In the hush of that still moment, he can hear the world again. Not just the birds and breeze, but something deeper, the subtle murmur of his own life. The aching, beautiful hum that has always been there. Under all the noise, we live in a loud world. It's about peeling away the layers of noise we've wrapped ourselves in. It's about remembering that we are not machines, but souls. That we are not measured by speed, but depth. So I invite you, wherever you are, pause. Breathe. You don't have to agree. Just listen. There is a kind of life beneath the surface of things. It's not glamorous. It doesn't go viral. But it's real and soft and human. It waits in silence, like that man by the lake. Let's sit with him for a while. A world of constant motion, fast scrolling, endless talking, notifications, opinions, urgencies that vanish an hour later. It tells us, move faster, speak louder, do more. And so we rush and shout and pile things onto our already aching souls. But in all this noise, something quiet is dying. The ability to truly be, to feel, to listen, to go deep. What if slowness isn't a waste of time, but a doorway? What if silence isn't empty, but full? What if the richest kind of life is not the one with the most achievements, but the one lived most attentively? This is a meditation on quiet, deep, and slow living. A philosophy not made of abstract theories, but of still mornings and long walks, of warm tea and unread books, of deep conversations and wordless prayer, of choosing presence over performance. This is not about escaping life. It's about returning to it. The modern life, a life of speed and noise. We live in an age where speed is praised like a god. Faster internet, faster food, faster answers, faster success. We scroll through life in tiny flashes, half listening, half thinking, always reaching for what's next. The average person spends hours each day staring into a glowing screen, flipping through images, messages, and videos, most of which they'll forget by morning. We call this connection. We call it progress. But deep down, don't we feel something slipping through our fingers? We have never had so much information, and yet felt so lost. Never been so stimulated, and yet so numb. Never had so many voices speaking to us, and yet felt so unheard. Noise isn't just sound. Noise is everything that keeps us from hearing, from really hearing. It's the endless emails, the half-meant small talk, the pressure to keep up, the quiet anxiety in the chest when you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, not knowing why. It's the playlist always running in the background, because the silence feels too loud. Somewhere along the way, we began to equate movement with meaning. We began to believe that if we weren't achieving something every moment, we were wasting our lives. That rest is laziness. That quiet is awkward. That slow is falling behind, but that's a lie, a costly one. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han writes of the achievement society, a world where we have become both the prisoner and the guard. We push ourselves harder, not because someone told us to, but because we've internalized the demand. Be better, do more, be productive. Even when we are exhausted, we can't stop striving. There is no finish line, only a faster treadmill. And when we finally rest, it's not real rest. It's recovery from the damage we've done. We crash, binge, numb out. We mistake escape for peace. But when the show ends or the feed dries up, The emptiness is still there. We weren't made for this kind of speed. Think of how a tree grows, slowly, inwardly, silently. You never hear it, but day by day it stretches deeper into the earth and higher into the sky. Or think of how a child learns to speak, not through force, but through imitation, rhythm, and love. Meaning takes time. Beauty takes time. Healing takes time. But time is the one thing our culture no longer respects. We compress everything, text instead of talk, a 30-second reel instead of a real story, instant gratification instead of slow fulfillment. Even grief is rushed. Take your time, we say, but the world moves on by next week. We forget that there are seasons in life. Some fast, yes, but many slow. Some loud, but many meant for quiet. And so we become fragmented, always doing, rarely being, always reacting, rarely reflecting, always watching, rarely seeing. We don't know what we truly want, because we've never stopped long enough to ask. Or worse, we're afraid of the answer. Afraid that if we slowed down, we'd have to face the hollow parts, the longing, the confusion, the unhealed ache we've been covering with busyness. But ignoring the ache doesn't heal it. Noise is seductive. It protects us from discomfort, but it also shields us from depth. And if we aren't careful, we wake up one day having lived years in distraction, missing the very heart of life. Marshall McLuhan once said, "We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us." The devices we built to serve us now command our attention. The platforms we joined to feel connected now profit off our loneliness. We've made everything louder, but we're hearing less. We've made everything faster, but we're going nowhere. We've become, in many ways, strangers to ourselves. And that's the tragedy, because somewhere within us, the soul remembers a different rhythm, a gentler pace, a deeper current. It remembers mornings without noise, meals eaten slowly with others, thoughts allowed to ripen, friendships that unfold over decades, moments that aren't captured but felt. The philosophy of quiet living. Quiet is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of something deeper. It is not silence for silence's sake. It is silence that reveals. Reveals what we miss when everything else is loud. Quiet living is not just about turning down the volume on the outside world. It's about listening more carefully to what's within. It is a way of life, a form of resistance, a philosophy that says you are not what you produce, that your value is not measured in velocity, but in attentiveness. It may sound simple, but it's not easy, because choosing a quiet life requires courage, courage to go against the grain of the modern world. It is not flashy, it's not efficient, and it's often invisible, but it is, in its essence, a return to the soul. A quiet life is not necessarily a rural life. It's not about moving to the mountains or deleting every app. A quiet life is one that is lived in alignment, where your actions match your values, where your days are slow enough to notice beauty, where there is space between your thoughts, where you don't need to shout to feel heard because you are already listening. Quiet living means living from the inside out, not the outside in. It's saying, I do not need to prove my worth through noise. It's asking, what truly nourishes me? It's realizing, I have a choice in how I live, even in a world that tries to make me forget. The longing for quiet is not new. It echoes through time. The philosopher Epicurus, often misunderstood as a hedonist, taught that true pleasure was found not in luxury, but in simplicity. A quiet garden, a loaf of bread, a good friend, a life free from fear and endless desire. The Taoists of ancient China spoke of Wu Wei, effortless action. Like a river flowing downhill, they believed life has a natural rhythm, and the wise do not force, but flow. They saw the most powerful force in the world as the quietest one, water, gentle, patient, yet able to shape mountains. Christian monastics practiced holy silence, not as emptiness, but as attentiveness to God. To sit in stillness, they believed, was to hear the whisper of the divine more clearly. To retreat from noise was not to escape life, but to enter it more deeply. And the modern philosopher Simone Weil wrote that true attention, deep, undistracted attention, is a form of love. When you truly pay attention to something, a flower, a friend, a line of poetry, you are loving it. You are honoring its presence. All of these traditions from east to west, from ancient to modern, agree on one thing. Stillness is not emptiness. It is space. It is room for truth to emerge. So what does it look like today in a noisy, fast world? It begins with small acts of rebellion, subtle rituals, shifts in attention, choosing to walk instead of rush, turning off the radio in the car and driving in silence, watching the sunset without taking a photo, having a conversation without checking your phone, sitting with your morning coffee, not to get started on the day, but to meet it, reading slowly, speaking softly, doing one thing at a time. It's not that these things are productive, they aren't. And that's the point. Quiet living is not for efficiency, it is for depth. It asks not, how much can I get done today, but how deeply can I live today? In a world that rewards the loudest voice, the fastest answer, the biggest platform, quiet living feels like vanishing. But in truth, it's the opposite. It's becoming visible to yourself again. When you quiet the noise, you start to hear the quiet truths, that you're tired, not because you're weak, but because you've been running too long, that you're lonely, not because something's wrong with you, but because the world has become a place where true presence is rare, that you long, not for more followers, but for someone to really see you. Quiet living gives you back what the modern world steals without asking, your attention, your time, your being. It restores the ability to notice your breath, the pattern of light on a wall, the feeling in your chest when a song reaches its final note. It reminds you, you are alive, you are here. This is enough. We all have an inner room, a place inside us that the world cannot reach. It gets dusty, cluttered, forgotten. But when we live quietly, we return to that room. We sit down. We light a candle. We listen. And in that stillness, something soft and beautiful begins to stir. Not always immediately. Quiet living isn't magic. It won't fix everything. It won't make you immune to grief or anxiety or loss. But it will make you more human, more present, more grounded, more capable of facing whatever life brings, not by running faster, but by standing still. So what if the quiet life isn't lesser? What if it's wiser? What if we've confused noise for truth and motion for meaning? What if all along the life we were truly seeking was waiting in the spaces we rushed past? There is no one path to quiet living, no perfect lifestyle, no final destination. There is only a choice, every morning, every hour, to tune your heart to a different frequency, to step away from the shouting world and into the sacred hush of your own soul, to choose again and again, not the loudest life, but the truest one. Slowness as resistance to the loud world. To live slowly today is a radical act. It may not seem like much, taking your time to cook a meal, writing a letter by hand, walking without earbuds in. But in a culture obsessed with speed, these gentle choices are quiet forms of rebellion. Slowness is not just a lifestyle, it's a philosophical stance. It says, I am not a machine, I am not a transaction, I am not here to be consumed. In a world that values how fast you can respond, how quickly you can rise, how efficiently you can produce, slowness whispers a different truth. I will not rush my life. I will live it. Speed has become a moral ideal. We talk about falling behind as if life were a race. We glorify multitasking, time management, life hacks, anything that squeezes more into less. But more what? And less of what? We rarely ask. We chase quantity and call it quality. We mistake constant motion for progress. We think that if we just go fast enough, we'll eventually outrun our dissatisfaction. But speed is a poor healer, and a worse companion. Author Carlo Petrini, founder of the slow food movement, said, "In the frenzy of productivity, we've forgotten how to taste." He wasn't just talking about food, he was talking about life itself. We eat fast, we love fast, we think fast, we expect ourselves to heal fast. And yet, nothing real happens that way. No flower blooms overnight, no child grows in a hurry, no great novel is written in a sprint. The best things in life require time, attention, and patience. But these are the very things our culture devalues most. Slowness is a way of seeing. When we slow down, we begin to see again. We notice the subtle textures of experience, the way the wind moves through a curtain, the pause someone takes before answering a hard question, the scent of oranges in the morning light. We remember that life is made up not of major events, but of thousands of small, delicate moments that are easily missed. Slowness opens the door to presence, and presence opens the door to meaning. When you rush, life becomes a blur. When you slow down, it becomes a painting. In 1845, Henry David Thoreau left the noise of society and moved into a small cabin by Walden Pond. He wanted to live, in his words, deliberately. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. This was not about escape. It was about focus. He wanted to strip away the distractions of culture and ask, what truly matters? What is real? What endures? Today, you don't need to live in a cabin in the woods to live deliberately. You just need to choose slowness in a world that constantly demands haste. It might look like saying no to an invitation so you can rest, sitting outside with a cup of tea and no agenda, choosing to deeply listen instead of quickly reply, letting a conversation wander instead of forcing a point. These are not small choices. They are soul-saving ones. To live slowly is not to fall behind. It is to walk at the pace of your own soul. It takes courage because you will feel the pull to rush. You will see others sprinting ahead, collecting achievements, followers, outcomes, and you may wonder if you're doing something wrong. But slowness is not failure. Slowness is freedom. It is freedom from urgency, from comparison, from the lie that your worth depends on your productivity. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first, because when we slow down, the noise fades and we begin to hear ourselves again. And what we hear might be unfamiliar or painful, but it's real and it's ours. Only in slowness do we make space for that inner voice to rise, the one that knows what we truly need, the one that doesn't scream, but speaks in stillness. What if success was not about how much we do, but how fully we live? What if the goal was not efficiency, but intimacy? Not control, but connection? Not hustle, but harmony? Slowness is not the enemy of a good life. It is its foundation. To live slowly is to give your moments the attention they deserve, to stop rushing past your own existence, to walk, not because you're late, but because you're alive. It's not the easy path, but it's the truest one, and maybe, just maybe, it leads us home. Depth, the hidden treasure. In a shallow world, depth is a hidden treasure. It is not rewarded with applause. It rarely trends. It is not flashy, and it does not clamor for attention. But it is what the soul longs for, something that goes beyond the surface, beyond quick answers, beyond hollow pleasures. To live deeply is to live fully. It is to live a life that is rooted, not rushed. It is to seek what lasts instead of what impresses. And in a time when we are told to skim across the surface of everything, to live deeply is an act of remembering that we were made for more than consumption. Depth is not about how much you know or how much you say. It is about how fully you experience. It is attention without distraction, feeling without anger, thinking without bias, loving without expecting. To live deeply is to feel pain honestly and joy completely. It is to listen, not just to what is said, but to what is meant. It is to stay with a question longer than is comfortable, to resist the urge to escape into certainty. Depth is the decision to remain present in a world that is always inviting you to look away. When you live deeply, you begin to see that meaning doesn't arrive all at once. It unfolds, like layers in a painting, like rings in a tree. Each layer comes only with time, with stillness, with trust. There's a saying, shallow streams are noisy, deep rivers run silent. We see this in people. There are those who constantly speak, seeking validation, afraid of silence. And then there are those who say little, but when they do, you listen, because their words carry weight. They have been somewhere. They are rooted. The same is true for a life. A shallow life is loud and restless. A deep life is quieter, but more enduring. To live deeply is to choose the river over the flood, the well over the puddle. It is to dig beneath the obvious and sit with the unseen. Modern life encourages broad but shallow connections. We follow hundreds of people, reply to messages with hearts and thumbs up, and call it friendship. But when suffering comes, when we need someone to sit beside us in the dark, how many of those people will come? Depth in relationship means fewer, but truer, connections. It means time, trust, slowness, vulnerability. It means listening without trying to fix, showing up without needing to be needed, sharing not just stories, but silence. Deep friendship is not built on performance or perfection. It is built on presence. There's depth in solitude. Solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is the ache of being unseen. Solitude is the sacred space where you learn to see yourself. It is the soil of depth. In solitude, you begin to hear your own voice again. Not the voice that repeats what the world says, but the quieter voice underneath, the one that speaks slowly, but truly. This is not always peaceful. Sometimes solitude confronts us. We see our wounds, our contradictions, our longings. But we also begin to see our capacity for wonder, for stillness, for depth. Without solitude, there is no self-knowledge. Without self-knowledge, there is no depth. There's depth in the ordinary. A deep life does not require extraordinary circumstances. You don't need to travel the world or read 1,000 books to find it. You only need to pay attention. Look at how sunlight touches the floor in the morning, the way an old couple holds hands at a bus stop, the quiet resilience of a plant on your windowsill. These things are not impressive, but they are real. And when you notice them, they change you. Depth comes from seeing again, as if for the first time. From refusing to let wonder die. A shallow life rushes past the ordinary. A deep life returns to it over and finds it sacred. What hides in the depths? To go deep is to go inward. Psychologist Carl Jung wrote that the soul is like the ocean, vast, hidden, full of mystery. He believed that we must face the unconscious parts of ourselves, the fears, desires, dreams, that we often keep buried. Only then can we become whole. This journey inward isn't easy. It requires honesty, time, stillness, but it is also profoundly freeing. You begin to live with intention, with alignment. You no longer react to everything. You respond. You are no longer at the mercy of every wave. You begin to know the shape of your own sea. Poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote to a young friend, "Go into yourself. Search for the reason that bids you write. Perhaps it will turn out that you are called to be an artist. Then take that burden and bear it, its heaviness and its greatness." He wasn't just speaking to writers. He was speaking to anyone trying to live truthfully. His invitation was this: do not fear the quiet places inside you. They are where the real begins. Our world's starving for depth. Our world is saturated with distraction, but starved of depth. We don't need more content. We need more contemplation. We don't need more opinions. We need more listening. We don't need to speak louder. We need to speak more truly. A deep life won't make headlines. It won't go viral. But it will matter. It will last. It will ripple outward, into your work, your relationships, your spirit. Because when you live deeply, you begin to live from your center. And when people meet you, they feel it. This person is here. So, slow down. Sit longer with your thoughts. Read slower. Feel deeper. Ask questions you don't immediately answer. Walk without needing to get somewhere. Let silence speak. Go deeper, not for the sake of depth itself, but for the richness it brings. A deep life is not something you find. It is something you cultivate, patiently, tenderly, over time. And the treasure it offers is not glitter or gold, but something better, a self that is whole, a heart that is awake, a life that is fully lived. Conclusion: a gentle call to slow down. So much of life today feels like a chase. We run towards success. We run from discomfort. We run to stay caught up, to be seen, to be enough. But maybe the point was never to run at all. Maybe the point was to return to quiet, to slowness, to depth, to return to the pace of your own breath, to the sound of your own thoughts, to the rhythm of a life lived with care. There is no final argument here, no formula, no grand revelation, just this, that something essential, something sacred, gets lost when we move too fast, shout too loudly, and live too shallowly, and that something beautiful begins to stir when we slow down, when we listen, when we stop reaching and start resting. You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to move to the countryside, or quit your job, or unplug from the world. But you can choose today to walk a little more slowly, to speak a little more gently, to be a little more present. You can turn off the noise, just for a while, and see what comes to meet you in the silence. You can pay closer attention to what you've been ignoring, the face across the table, the ache in your chest, the softness of morning light. You can ask yourself not what should I do next, but what have I forgotten to feel? You can choose to live not louder, but truer. Because the life you seek isn't in the next notification. It isn't on a screen or in your schedule or behind some future achievement. It's here, now, in this breath. in this step, in this simple moment, if you're willing to return to it. So let this be a gentle invitation, not a demand, not another task, just a reminder that there is another way to be alive, a quieter way, a slower way, a deeper way, and that it's waiting, not somewhere far away, but right where you are. All you have to do is listen. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more deep content. We cover philosophies of life,